Sophronia, you talked about the novel that you're writing that involves translating dangerous liaisons into 1940s Harlem. So, can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Yes, I'm going to be giving talks about this at libraries and such, and so I really had to, you know, look at the elements that I assembled to help me do that. And it occurred to me that the notes that that I sort of latched onto had to do with things that struck me from seeing that very first movie, the Glenn Close, John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer movie. So one of those elements was fashion. Okay, I still have that image of my head of Glenn Close stepping out of a carriage, and she had this big hat on, and you can't see her face at first, and she looks up, and suddenly you see her face, and it's a very cynical, mean looking face, but then she immediately changes it to this expression of concern as her cousin comes up to her and says, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here." So that image of that dress has been, in my mind. So when I started looking through um, images, because I knew that I would be describing clothing when writing this book, I started picking out outfits that I knew my character, May Malveaux, would want to wear. I knew some of this clothing would be French. I learned about Christian Dior, and during the setting of my book was the time that he was releasing what's called the New Look. And I saw an outfit that I knew my character would wear because it reminded me of that Glenn Close outfit, a very tight to the waist, slim line, but a big hat, and long gloves and this flared skirt. So, that was exciting to me to think about the clothing and how I could have describe some showstoppers that would just show the same sort of elegance. At one point, May is wearing a gold gown, that kind of 1940s Hollywood glamour, and it's like silky, like molten metal flowing down. So fashion was very big. The other thing was the sound of music. So there was opera in that original one, but for here, of course, 1940s Harlem, it would be jazz. And one of the big opening scenes of my novel, of course, is in a beautiful nightclub. So I studied, the songs that were there that had come out at the time. I wanted to reference Ella Fitzgerald and Cab Calloway and Duke Ellington, Louis Jordan, right? So it was exciting to find just the right music that would fit both the scenes and the time. The song Nature Boy, for example, plays a really big role in the book. Baseball plays a big role in the book, but mainly because I wanted a catalyst for my Valmont character. And that catalyst turns out for him to be Jackie Robinson breaking the color line in baseball, which happened actually 70 years ago this year. So my novel is set actually 70 years ago right now. And so my character loves baseball. So he watches baseball. He plays baseball many times throughout the course of the book. At the end of the book, he's attending the World Series that the Brooklyn Dodgers lost. So um, I wanted to have a community activity in that's shaping society, and that is part of the story. And to me, that was baseball. You also needed a community element, where people gather, where you could see who was in and who was out. And in Dangerous Liaisons, that was at the Opera House. You saw that in the film. Glenn Close was sitting there, just looking who was in the audience, who's sitting with who. She wasn't even looking at the stage. So in my book, that would obviously be, to me, the great Black churches of Harlem. So I created a church and had researched, how these churches were financed, what the big churches were like, the churches that have the most money. So I created a community like that in the church. So with those building blocks, I was able to create a world essentially, and a world that still hit very similar notes to the 18th century story in France. But here it is with these new characters with new ambitions and new thoughts, but still keeping just the thread of the story alive.